Hey everyone, my name is Purple Planet, but most people just call me Purple, and I'm a professional composer. I recently started a new streaming series in which a roulette wheel decides a genre or style, and I'll give myself 1 or 2 hours to write something within that style it decides. Now I couldn't just do exactly the same thing as we're doing on stream, so I've decided to shake it up a little bit. For some of the people who have been watching this series from the beginning, you will know that it started when DNA Dennis, a friend of mine, needed some music for a video he's working on. And after we made the theme, I kind of made a Christmas version out of it. And I enjoyed that actually maybe even more than the original tune that I wrote. So I wanted to do something similar to that again, where I'll get one melody, a well-known melody, if it's a meme tune, if it's whatever, doesn't matter. I'll take one melody that already exists, I'll spin the wheel, and whatever it lands on, we're gonna rewrite it in that style. Alright. Let's get our melody, shall we? Let's see, what's it gonna be? Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Hey, perfect beginning. First piece you learn on piano, perfect. Alright, now let's get our genre, our style, our feeling. How should we compose Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? What will it be? A polka. Oh, a waltz. Alright, waltz it is. Okay, let's go. For the people who know me, who have been watching the streams, you know that I always start on this little piano behind me. So let's just look at that little melody we got, right? There we go. Cute little melody. And the main problem with that melody, of course, the first problem is that it actually is written in 4/4, right? I mean, that's the opposite of a waltz, what we need to write, right? Normally it's written... And we can't have that. We need to waltzify that, right? So I mean, the first instinct is... Right, the waltz, the Viennese waltz. Actually, you know what would be cool? Doing this song in minor. Oh man, that's gonna be sick. We should work with that. Alright. So I popped open Sibelius here, and we're going for a full orchestra. I think it makes the most sense for a waltz like this. Now, of course, there are a few things that are important to change. Like, one of them is, of course, the time signature. It's a waltz. We're gonna do it in 3/4, right? I think that makes the most sense. Metronome mark. I like to put it at 120 and then see if it needs to be faster or slower as we go along the way. Keys. I don't do keys. We'll write all of the flats and sharps. We'll write them manually. I'm a fan of that way more than writing within one key. The title. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. The composer? We don't know. A little known fact that I totally didn't just Google. It is made by someone called John Taylor. That's the original songwriter. And before we start even writing a single note, something we need to think about is how Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is structured. Because if you look at that melody, it's ABA, right? Twinkle, twinkle, little star, da 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 da. That's the A. Da 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 da. That's the B. And then twinkle, twinkle, little star, da 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 da. That's A again, right? The way we're gonna structure it is intro, A, B, A, and then after that intro, A, B, A, I think we want to have a variation of the melody. Let's first, before we do anything, write down the melody. I'm gonna write it on the piano bar real quick. And now you're already gonna notice something, because normally Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is written like this. Now, the problem is, of course, that you can see right here, this doesn't make a lot of sense. If we put a quick bass line underneath this. Right, it isn't synced up in any way. So we need to rewrite that melody so it actually makes sense, right? If we take a listen now, this already should make a lot more sense, but it should still remain the same melody. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, so then we have our first little A section. Quickly gonna do this, bam. And then the B section. There we go, that should be the full melody. Let's give it a quick listen. Something we already said would be cool is make this minor. So let's change this. So right now it's in a major key, right? It's in C major. Now, put up the circle of fifths. Can we do that? Oh, bam! Right now there's a circle of fifths. So we're gonna look for C minor. So okay, let's look. I don't know where my hand is going and where the thing. Oh, there it goes. It has 3 flats. It has 3 flats, right? So we're gonna have to put those in manually. Like I said, I don't do keys. I do everything manually. So you can see here. So we have an E. Well, that should be an E flat, right? Okay, then we get to the next part, and this is the most interesting part. This is what makes it sound really cool. Is that this A in the melody should be A flat, and this shouldn't be F major. This should be F minor. Right, there we go. Now the only one that stays the same is going to be this G, because that's going to be the dominant function. So we're in harmonic minor technically, right? And that's going to be the dominant function to bring us back to that minor 1. So we now take a listen to that melody again. Man, that's so dark, that's so dark, that's so cool. I think that works really well. Right, cool. But now we have it on piano, right? And that's not really what we want, right? I mean, we've got this full orchestra. It would be kind of sad if we only use the piano. So most of the time in the waltzes, especially the big waltzes, the main waltz part is carried by the strings. So we're gonna just do that very, very idiosyncratically. We're gonna write it out for the strings. So we're gonna take this bass that the piano is playing and basically just move that over to the strings. Alright, so now we have this little bass thing in there. And what's interesting about strings playing this is that they can play it in 2 ways. They can either bow it, which we call arco, right? Which it sounds full and thick, or they can pluck it, right? They can play it pizzicato is what we call that. So I'm gonna put in right here, and it's the funny one, piss. Now if we listen to this again, it's gonna be plucked. It's a little bit more low key, right? Cool. And what I'm gonna do with this, because it's the upright bass right now, or the contrabass, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change it also. I'm gonna also give it to the cello. Okay, but now we're missing the harmony, right? So we're gonna take this harmony and we're gonna put it on the other strings, right? So normally the way I like to do this in Sibelius is just flat out play the harmony, right? So I'm gonna just write it out like this. And now something you might notice is that the notes we're using here in the bass is the C. It's the same note we're using right here. So we can actually think about maybe not using that and giving it a different texture. For example, we can play a D. So then we get this kind of effect. I think that's kind of cool, actually. I think that's kind of cool. Something else you could do is make it a B flat, so I have the top note move. Then it becomes something like this. I think that is already fuller than what we probably want this intro to be. So I'm gonna stick with this first little harmony thing. Technically, for all your jazz enthusiasts, that would be the 9. Okay, cool. So now we have the harmony, the basic waltz structure, we have that down. Now, I don't think we want to have piano at all in the beginning, right? I don't think, like, it's cool, but you know, I think we can do better than that. We can just stay with our normal instrument. So I'm just gonna remove the bass line, and you know, that can go already. And then this melody. This is one of the most important choices you're gonna make, right? What is gonna be your lead instrument? In my ears, when I listen to this, it sounds like an oboe kind of line. Oboe is this very gentle, but dark sound, at least in my ears, dark sounding instrument. So let's just try and give it to the oboe. We have two of those right here. Let's give it to both of them. Let's take a listen. Alright, awesome. I think that already works really well. Now, something you might notice that this melody, I mean, it is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, right? It isn't that much of a melody. So let's try and make that melody sound a little bit cooler. Let's see where we can do some additions to it. For example, here, why don't we try and do something with this melody? Something small like this. It's small little things, small things. We don't have to make it a big, like, huge, different piece all of a sudden. Just small little, one note there, a little line there. And then for this note, this is on our main harmony, right? Again, C minor, which is also our starting point. So we call that our home, right? That's our home in harmony. You know what? Let's put a little trill on that. A little trill on that. Let's see how that sounds. Awesome. I think that already works really well. I think that works really well. Now, probably the second time we have this melody playing, we maybe want a little counter melody. Something that, you know, just fights a bit against it. So let's think about where we're going to place that. We're probably not going to place that in the clarinet or the flute because they're going to be a little bit too high. They're kind of in the same range as the oboe. The clarinet is mainly a little bit lower. The flutes are a little bit higher. So let's think about something that's in a completely different range. Let's think about the bassoons, for example. We stay within the woodwinds. We don't go to the brass yet. That's a little bit too loud. We don't want to change the strings yet because they're at the moment just playing our waltz. So let's try and think about this bassoon part. Now, something that's always easy to start with is just taking our main melody and putting it in the right octave. Of course, we don't actually want it to play the same melody, right? We want it to play that it plays something completely different to our main melody. So let's think about what sounds nice. Something you have in composition is called counterpoint, which is the movement of two melodies against each other, or four melodies against each other. So one goes up, one goes down. We're gonna try and follow that a little bit. Not fully, because, you know, we're free thinkers here at Purple Planets, but we can do a little bit of movement. So for example, let's start with this. I think that already sounds quite good. Now let's continue that further and further. So what we're also doing is changing up the rhythm a little bit, right? So you still hear there's a second voice. No, okay, now we get to the second part. Now we get to the B section. And I think we already want to switch instruments here. I think the oboe is doing a wonderful job so far, but I think we can do better. And I think that because we want to grow and grow and grow, we're going to the horn. The horn is kind of the connection point between the woodwinds and the brass. The brass is known as the loudest of the orchestra, right? So we want to slowly move towards them, right? We're going to keep them for the end, keep them saved up. We want to work towards them. I think that works really well, but now we have we once again we're missing a counter voice, and we can grow even more. So what I think I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna take a few of these strings, and I'm gonna give them to the woodwind, the oboes and the clarinets. So they're gonna play the same little phrase. Alright, that's beginning to sound a lot more full. And we're not writing extra things, right? That's the most important thing here. We're not writing extra material. We're using the material we already have, we're just reusing it, right? But I do think we want some new material, right? Because otherwise it's still going to be a little bit still. Now, something you'll often see in waltzes like this is that there's flutes or the high strings playing a little counter melody. Da-da, 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 some shit like that, right? So we want to do the same thing in our flute probably. Something like this, right? something a little something extra in the back. And then now, of course, we want to be able to change this with the harmony. So we want to be able to change this to what we're now on, which is F minor. So how do we do that? Well, in this case, it's actually quite simple. We're going to move it up one, to the up, to the up. And probably have this be an E flat, right? Because we want to stick in that original harmony. So if we go back to our strings, these are the notes we want to use. We don't want to go too much outside of these notes. So we can use that again, because it's on C again. And then we want to go to G. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We're just going to look where does the melody fit, where does it not fit. So that would probably be a D, right? Because we don't have an E flat in this harmony, we have a D in that harmony. Okay, cool. Let's take a listen to this little top thing. Cool. And then the second time it's becoming a little still, right? So maybe we change it the second time. What's kind of nice about things like this is you want to keep them going until the next section, right? So it kind of puts the whole thing together. In this case, we're doing that by writing a scale that goes to the 1 of the next bar. Right, so if we listen to this last part now, this is where we have the variation. So let's take a listen now to this thing where we have the little variation. Right, that works really well, So we're kind of jumping part to part, but I think what we're going to do now is we're going to just finish the first AABA. So I think it is actually a kind of a nice thing to go back to the oboe. But something that I would like to do is also give it to the top violin. Just to add a little bit of something new, right? Something a little bit different. And then of course, because we already did all of this build-up, we don't suddenly want all of these to fade away, right? We want them to keep continuing to do the harmony. In this case, of course, we can't put it on everything because the oboe has to do the melody again, so we're only using our clarinets here. And we're going to put them an octave down as well, because we don't want it to interfere with this melody. And now, we still want the counter melody, right? And we had it on the oboes, but I want the oboes to continue this, because I like the sound of them doing that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to give this to the trombones. Once again, quietly introduce the horns, or quietly introduce the brass rather. Okay, let's see how this last A section sounds now. Cool. Now something that I'm feeling, at least at this point, is that it's a little bit too slow. It can go a little faster. I like quick tempos, and man oh man, this is slow. So let's try, let's say 140, how that sounds. Alright, I think that's already better. I think something we could actually add here as well, now I'm listening to it again, I think we can add the tuba in there as well, just an octave lower, just have a little bit more, right? We want to grow and grow and grow and grow. I want a new section, which is a variation on this. Now what I'm hearing in my head is that this clearly wants to go to an F minor kind of thing, right? Because, put up the circle of fifths again. If we go to C minor, which is the last chord we ended on, we can see that a fourth away from that, or a fifth away from that, is our F. Which means that it has this kind of tendency to already move towards that harmony. So why not oblige? Let's go there. Now the thing is, we could do it on the strings again. I think we shouldn't, right? We want to give them some actual material to work with instead of only doing this kind of thing. So what I'm quickly going to do is I'm going to put this here. And the first thing I'm going to say is, right now we're already getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So our basses, they will remain doing the bass. I think that just makes sense. But this, I actually think at this point we can give this to the horn. I think that works already. Now what I'm gonna do here is just some, standard jazz writing basically. Some harmonies just work nice together. Like I said, you have that circle of fifths and everything pulls somewhere. Our F pulls to C minor. Hey, that's kind of funny because we were just on that C minor, right? So I want to hear that again. Okay, cool. Now we need a melody for this. How are we gonna come up with a melody? Well, we of course have our melody already, our little Twinkle Twinkle Little Star melody. But something that I would think about when writing melodies, which is a really interesting thing. I used to have a teacher who did this. He would literally look at the interval, so the space between notes within a piece of music. And then he would put that into an Excel sheet. So he would say there are so many steps of this size, there are so many steps of this size. And he would write that all down. So he would know if I'm writing some new material that has to work with this other material that I already have. It needs to be equivalent to those many steps. So we're going to kind of do the same thing. So something we can look at is the first step is, I think, the most famous one, right? That step, that is Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars. So let's see if we can use that step in a new way. So first of all, we're in a different harmony, right? So let's start with that. So maybe something like that, something easy like that. Something like this. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be difficult. Something like this could work. Oh, then I should stay the same note. But I think that works. So we're gonna give this to the strings on all of these. Are we? No, actually, I have something in mind for our viola. The violas are always the bit of the joke, and I think for the right reason. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this little harmony we have right here. We're gonna go back to reducing it, and we're gonna put it on the viola. Something really interesting string players can do, which not a lot of people take advantage of, is that they can actually play multiple notes at once. They don't have to only play one string. They can play two at once. It's called double stops. And knowing how to use double stops can be really effective in your music. For example, there's enough distance between these where they can grab it on two different strings, which means they can play it at the same time. So I think we're just gonna have them play this little harmony. What I think we should do is have the second time that it plays, give it to the trumpet as well. We're not gonna have it play it very high up or something. We're just gonna have it play it in an easy range. Something to once again introduce us to already a little bit heavier sounding dynamics. We can even at the end here have one of the trumpets go higher a little bit. So it already introduces us to the next part. Now I think this works really well, but once again I think I'm missing a counter melody. I think that this is another job for the bassoon maybe. A very high bassoon, but a bassoon nonetheless. Okay, now we have a little counter melody, let's listen if that works. And I think actually the second time we have the counter melody play, we could even add a few more instruments, right? Because the melody is also getting played by the trumpet, so we can even have a little bit of a stronger counter melody. So we're gonna have it be played on the clarinet instead. Let's take a listen to how that would sound. I think that actually works quite well. I think that works quite well. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm listening to it and I think we can go faster. I think we can go faster. Okay, let's take a listen if we put it at 160 BPM. If that's gonna be too fast or if that's about right. Cool. Now something I've been putting off a little bit, which people might find upsetting, is the percussion. Which of course, we're in a waltz, it's one of the most important things. We have a timpani in here, which of course, let's be honest, that will always be great. But the reason I didn't want to do it yet is because I want to first write the intro. Because I think, you know, when listening to these waltzes, one of the most famous waltzes, of course, is the Second Waltz by Shostakovich. And what he does is just play the waltz. So we're going to do exactly the same. Because if it works for him, it's going to work for us. And the way he plays it is full out. It's going to be quite heavy. So we're going to have the strings be playing arco and all going to be long. And all of these are going to have an accent. Now this bass line is actually also going to be played by the timpani. So we want this to be forte, maybe even double forte, but we're going to start with just forte. And then when the melody actually kicks in, let me put another bar there so we can clearly see it. We want it to go down in volume, right? We want it to go maybe even to mezzo forte. Okay, let's quickly take a listen. So first thing I'm hearing is that I want the timpani to be played long. I want them to hold the note, right? And then I think we're still missing one thing that's quite important, right? We want a snare drum, and something else that we probably want is, let me just quickly find it, is cymbals. It was right there. I just didn't see it. Okay, let's take a listen. So this is the basic percussion. That's a little bit lame, right? Because we want it to be a little heavier. So there's a few things we can do. One of the most famous ones is what we call a flum. Now in Sibelius, flums don't really work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a grace note, which is this little note. It just means before you play your note, quickly hit this other one, right? Now I think this works really well, and I don't want to keep the timpani in there because the timpani is a little bit too heavy, but I do like this snare thing we got going on. So we're going to keep the snare, that's just going to play underneath the main melody. We're going to of course put that mezzo forte as well. Now the thing is, normally people that start composing, they have this tendency to make these great dynamic movements, right? So it would already, like at this point, when we hear the counter melody come in, it would already go forte. You shouldn't do that. The reason is that your second melody, your counter melody, is already gonna add volume. So instead of writing dynamics, we are composing dynamics. We're writing more, right? And that's gonna have the same effect. So it doesn't matter that this is still the same volume, because it's gonna sound fuller, it's gonna sound thicker, right? And that's what we want. So we're not gonna go up here in the dynamics. However, we will go up here in the dynamics, because this is just a full bigger theme, and we don't only want it to sound louder, we want it to feel louder, we want it to have more energy, right? So at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go all the way down there. We're gonna have one big crescendo, and then I'm gonna write in, bam, forte on all these instruments. So now if we listen to the movement from this part forward, we're going to hear that massive audio change. This is the point where we get the big return of the timpani. I think we've waited long enough. We're already going louder. Why not bring it back, right? So we're gonna go back to our bass. It's a cheesy way of doing it, but it works. So actually what we're gonna do is something interesting, right? I think at this point we don't want to go higher in volume. We weirdly enough we want to go lower in volume. And we don't want it to be a huge difference, but we need to build up again, right? If we're already going to forte or double forte, it's, you know, we don't have any range to play with anymore. Cool. And then now I think we want to just go back into this. It's going to be really weird. We're going to go back into this melody, but we're going to have it be played in major. Okay, let's take a listen. Aw, doesn't that sound cute? And now of course we're going to make that massive, right? Now instead of it being mezzo forte, we're going to have it be like, probably start with just forte and then go into double forte. Now what I'm doing here is actually, I'm just taking this melody we already had and I'm just blowing it out over this entire orchestra, right? Just put it everywhere. I think even that I want it on the strings again, and this time I want it in octaves. I want it to be played very high, like this. I think that works already. I think that's already a bit cooler. I think that works already, but what I want to do is just quickly just go over top of this with the strings and add some triplets to build up to that melody. And now the second time, right, we want to hear this twice again probably. The second time we can make it even bigger and bigger and bigger. So now we're gonna have even more things happening. Maybe, like, I actually kind of like this triplet thing. We put that in the other strings as well. Let's take a listen to that. Let's take a listen to that. And then actually, you know what we can do to be really cool here? We can modulate it. Now we're probably still missing a few things, right? A counter melody, a good counter melody. Alright, let's see how something like this sounds underneath it all. I think that works really well. We just listen to the strings there. But the problem is, if we go into this next section and we don't have this 8-note kind of thing continue, it's gonna sound a little weird. So what we should do is actually keep doing this, but only in the cello and in the bass. I think that works splendidly. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna also have this on trombone. I think it will fit the trombone kind of sound. Well, now what we're gonna do, because it's just a little cutesy little thing, is we can have this repeated one more time, those last two bars. Okay, on that last melody, let's just have this be a long note. Cool. Now let's have the trumpets maybe do a little cool thing here. I've got one more problem, and that's that this as an ending doesn't work, right? So we need to think about what harmony this should be. Awesome. That's sounding really cool already. So let's finish up with the percussion here at the end. For a moment like this, we could probably actually have this follow the same rhythm. So where we're following the score rhythm, I think we want to do that as well on the snare drum. On these little triplets. I think that's the ending done. Now let's take a little listen back to the earlier parts and let's just... finishing touches, right? We don't want to add too much. I think, for example, on a part like this, we can actually already kind of have something else going. Maybe it's the clarinets doing a little bit of harmony. Something like this. Like, nothing too complex, just a little bit of extras behind the scenes, right? I mean, you're not really going to be paying attention to this, right? But it does add up. If you put this in the background, like, you will notice this. And then, for the hell of it, let's put this in pianissimo first. Or piano. And then have it crescendo in. So it leads us more into that second melody. Let's take a listen to that. I think that's gonna add a lot already. Yeah, I think that helps. I think that helps already quite a bit. And then I think actually what could be cool is having like a little effect thing. Now something I always weirdly think of when I'm listening to waltzes is tubular bells. I don't know why, but tubular bells always fit for me in a waltz. So let's have maybe a little cutesy little melody. We could even add that on the piano probably. Having an octave higher. Maybe we even put a little trill on that last piano part. And for this part, now we can actually add the piano as well. I think that might just about do it. That's all the time I have. I think this works really well. I'm quite happy about this. I think you can always make it bigger and fatter and thicker, but I think you want to hear Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in there, and I think you can still do it. I think you can still sing it over it. Might be a very dark star, but I think this works. So why not? Let's take a listen to the full thing, the finished result. Hey everyone, if you made it this far, thank you for watching to the video. It's something new. The editing is already taking way too long. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, maybe like, maybe subscribe. It helps a lot. And join one of the live streams. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. Thank you everyone. And I hope to see you in the next one.